All right, everyone, welcome to Strictly Sports. I am Jacob Brown. We are here for our first episode since all of this virus stuff broke out. We are not in studio today at FAU Owl Radio. We are actually all at our houses on this new app called Anchor. I told you guys we'd figure out a way to get these episodes out for you guys, and we have figured that out. So I'm joined here, as always, by Mr. CJ Uri and Stephen Cashin. How you guys doing?
Doing all right. I am quarantined in my house, practicing social distancing at the moment.
Good.
It stinks. It's terrible, but is what it is. We need sports back on TV, so I'm going to do my part in doing my best to eliminate the spread of this virus. Desperately need a haircut. Parents won't let me get out of the house, so is what it is. I'm holed up in my room making podcasts about sports that aren't even happening right now. So how about you, Steve?
Hanging in there, 2 weeks out sports now, and it's, taking it day by day, but, we'll make it happen eventually. Hopefully get back to some normalcy and get back to some sports on the daily, but, I'm just hanging in there and looking forward to, something getting back here shortly.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just been tough for all of us, I think, just, being quarantined in our houses with nothing new to watch. It's just, you're looking for stuff to do. I've been playing a lot of MLB The Show, NHL 20 to pass the time. I know NBCSN is playing hockey repeats of classic games, but it's just not enough to get us through. And, speaking about the coronavirus, guys, I mean, what has this impact been on just the grander sports world?
It is impacted literally every facet of sports, whether that be the Olympics today just got postponed.
Yeah.
Hold on. I think I just exited the recording.
No, you're good.
Am I still in?
Yeah.
I don't see it on my screen anymore, but I guess I'll just keep it here. I mean, the Olympics just got postponed for a full year. I mean, just like everything is being absolutely canceled. The NBA is vowing to complete the season. The NHL, I haven't seen any update on whether they're going to do some playoff format to include the teams that were on the bubble. I mean, the MLB teams, I know you're a Yankees fan. You were excited for this upcoming year. You got some great players and a real run at the World Series. This is postponed. Who knows when it's going to start?
Yep.
It's terrible. I want this virus to end, and that's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a disaster so far. It's just once Rudy Gobert came down with the virus, you could see the trickle down effect from every sport. NBA took suit and postponed their season. NHL went right after that, and then every other sports league went right after that. And it's unfortunate, and I think the seasons are over. In my opinion, I think you're going to get too far gone. This thing's getting worse by the day. I hate to say it because you were having a great seasons from NHL teams. Look at the Panthers, all these teams, the Rangers. You're having great playoff races coming down the stretch, and now for it to get cut short, it sucks. But you get too deep into a season, off season gets cut off, the next season gets impacted. So I think some hard decisions are going to be made here in the coming weeks. But we saw the Masters get canceled too. I mean, every sporting event you can imagine is just getting affected by this virus.
So it's a perfect segue, Stephen. I mean, I was going to ask you guys that. I mean, once you get to a certain point, let's say you get to July and we still haven't played hockey games yet. Can you even start a playoff series or an entire playoff season in July? Because then you're talking about, that's probably a good 2 months. That takes you to the end of August. Well, the season usually starts in October, training camp late September. That's not a long enough off season for these teams. So do they just end up canceling these seasons? Is that the best way to go? Or, because there's actually some leagues that are talking about still finishing off the regular seasons first before even starting the playoffs. Where do you think this will go, guys?
For the NHL, I feel like The only way that they're going to be able to do this is to do like a best 2 out of 3 series for the bubble teams, and then do a little bit of an expanded playoff race where the first round is short and abbreviated, and then you get into your 8 teams that are in it. It's not really fair, like I will accept anything they do just so I can get sports back. But as a Panthers fan, we're like a point or two out of a spot, and we had a crucial game coming up with Toronto, and the race was going to come down to the last game. So it's really not fair at all to just say whoever's in a spot now is in a spot. We're going to start the season. So I'm sure that they're going to work around that. For the NBA, I don't know what they'll do in that regard. It's definitely a headache right now, but as long as they get it right, I mean, there's an opportunity to really do this. I mean, it's not like these guys are playing right now. They're resting. They're rested up. As long as they're, working out from home and whatnot and keeping their bodies in shape as much as they can. I mean, you're not putting any more mileage on these players. So I guess they're going to have a little bit of like an extended offseason here with some weeks off, and then come back to some hockey and play for about a month, and then get another 2 months off and then start a new year. I think it'll work out. It's going to be a little awkward, but it is what it is. I mean, the only league right now that's unaffected is the NFL, just because they start in August for preseason. So hopefully that stays on schedule, but it's definitely a headache. Hopefully they get this playoff expansion right, just to include some teams.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I think every sports league is holding out hope right now until the very last second. Like I said, if we get to late May here, there's only so much we can do. And I think the NHL, NBA, they're going to have to make some hard decisions saying, hey, we're going to have to cut some teams short. That's just the way it is. If you want some sort of champion, I was thinking about this the other day, it's like, NHL, maybe just do top 3 in each division. If you want a Stanley Cup champion, at the end of the day, you have to make some sort of format. It's not going to make everyone happy, but that might be the way to go if you want to salvage some sort of champion or some season. The other part of that is you get to May and June, then these players have been sitting for 2 months. You're going to need some sort of time to, get back in shape, work out, a 10-day mini camp, something to get these guys back in the groove. Baseball, they already said they're going to need a month at least of spring training or something to get them back, into game shape.
Yeah, I think you have a point there. I mean, either way you slice it, I don't think that there's really a positive way to fix this. I think, either way, there's going to be problems with whatever solutions these teams come up with, and these leagues come up with. Like you said, I mean, there could be a situation where we have playoff teams that, are right on the bubble, those 9, 10, 11 seeds. They're a point or two out of the playoffs in the NHL. And, they're taken out of a playoff spot just because, they couldn't finish the games. But at this point, I think you would just have to tell these teams, listen, no one saw this pandemic coming. If we had known this was coming, maybe we would have had a better solution. But there's just nothing that you can do at this point. And if these leagues have to make concessions and say, okay, we're going to do a reduced playoff format, or, best of 3 series instead of best of 7, I think, the players and the owners are really going to have to agree to it at some point. And as far as baseball goes, I've heard, maybe they do that month of spring training. I've also heard maybe they extend the rosters so that some teams can have more pitchers, because the starting pitchers won't be built up for those 5-6 inning outings. And, maybe they can only go 3 innings, so it would have to be a big bullpen game. So you could certainly see that as well. But, especially with baseball, I mean, if you get to June and you haven't played games yet, to me, I'd say, just cancel the first 2 months of the season and play the final 4. They already play 162 games. I don't think you need that many to determine who goes to the playoffs and who doesn't. I think you can determine that in, around 120 games.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could even go, say if it drags out to July, they said opening day could be July 4th weekend.
Wow.
You play, let's say you play 82 games. Think about the ratings for MLB and baseball. People will watch 80 games of baseball. I mean, that's short. It's not 162 games. It's not 6 months drawn out. you could have a better draw and have half the season. People get interested in the stadium, so we get sold out. And I mean, you don't need, like I said, 100 something games to decide a regular season champion. I think you have a sprint to the finish and, see what happens and go from there. But that could be your best case scenario for baseball if it drags out that late.
Yeah, absolutely. And enough about this virus stuff. It's first of all, we just want to wish everyone that may be affected by this, the best of luck in this situation. We wish everyone a fast and speedy, healthy recovery. But let's talk about the NFL now, guys. And Steven, I know you're a Bucs fan, so we'll let you talk about this first. Tom Brady is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. That is a real sentence that just came out of my mouth. That's an actual fact. He is no longer with the New England Patriots. That wasn't a shock to us. I know we were all talking about, we all thought, Tom was going to leave New England. He wanted to win without Bill. That was something that actually meant something to him. But none of us guessed Tampa. I mean, I think we all thought, hey, Tampa has weapons. That's a cute. But it actually happened. Steven, I mean, you're a Bucs fan. How do you think this is going to work out?
It's very exciting. I mean, I still wake up and go, Tom Brady's a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. You think about it. I never even imagined, that it would actually happen. But it's here and it's exciting. I think everyone in Tampa now is hopping on the Bucs bandwagon. If you weren't with us, through all the struggles now we kind of reap the rewards. But we'll see what happens. I mean, this guy's a winner. I mean, I never liked him in New England just because it was New England. You hate the dynasty. You hate seeing him win every year, winning 17 division titles. Now you're coming to a team that really hasn't had a whole lot of success, but it's a guy that's coming to win. He didn't come and sign a 2-year deal to come lose 12 games a year. He came to go try to win a Super Bowl. He actually just make the playoffs, get a team to the playoffs that hasn't been there in 10 plus years, then go from there. Get a football team rejuvenated, get a city excited about football again. And, he's a guy definitely that can, whip young guys into shape and say, hey, this is how it's done. Follow me and we'll get it done. I mean, I'm very excited to see what the season brings. Ton of weapons, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and tons of running back potential in the backfield, Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones. But they've re-signed all their defensive guys they wanted. JPP's back, Shaq Barrett. I mean, there's a lot of things to be excited for this Buccaneers team, and if they gave out trophies in March, the Cleveland Browns would have a dynasty.
Huh.
So you can sign all these guys you want, but we'll see what happens. But I'm very excited for Brady being here.
CJ.
So, I don't know if you guys remember, but I had said that he was going to leave a while ago. I called it. I said he was gone. He wants a lot to prove. I can tell he was really upset at the fact that New England decided to not surround him with really anything. I mean, he went into the season last year with, they got Josh Gordon. Okay. God only knows what happened with that behind the scenes. And then they went out and got Antonio Brown after week 1. Then, Antonio Brown's gone. But there was no stable amount of weapons. There wasn't. And it's not fair to a guy that's 40, 41, 42, however old he is,
43.
to get out on the field. 43, whatever it is. I mean, it's not, you can't expect that guy to get out on the field and throw to these players that just aren't very talented. They don't create space. They don't do any of that. And it's hard for Tom Brady to carry the offense. There were so many times that he threw the ball and it came out with no zip on it. Just looked deflated. And it's just because these wide receivers, they're not creating really any space for him to throw the ball in a window. Tom Brady is not a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. He's not a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, even what Brett Favre was in terms of arm talent, like where he can zip it into a pocket, a really close window. And, if you're not going to create space for Tom Brady, I mean, he's not going to be an effective quarterback. So he gets to go to a spot. Bruce Arians, I like the coach. He's going to another coach that he can relate to, and he's going to be liked. I feel like he's going to you guys are going to see some really good videos and clips of Brady and Bruce Arians just talking about football on the sidelines, whereas in New England, Brady would go back to the bench, and him and Belichick didn't really talk all that much. And it's not that there was ever like hatred between them, but you could tell they were always kind of their own separate entities. And I think the marriage in Tampa Bay is going to be great. I mean, he gets to throw to Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard, and they still can add through the draft whatever it may need. I think it's an exciting time, and I think Tom Brady made the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that really concerns me with the Bucs is their secondary, and I think their offensive line, while it's ranked 7 by PFF, I think it could still need some work on the tackle position, specifically at left tackle. But here's the thing: if your one weakness as a team is your secondary, I think you can be okay. The Kansas City Chiefs went to the Super Bowl with their weakness being the secondary. They have the weapons, like you said, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate. They have the guy. They're going to get a running back, even though Melvin Gordon's off the board, went to Denver. I think they'll still draft a running back, whether it be J.K. Dobbins or, Jonathan Taylor or someone like that, maybe someone a little bit lower than that. They will fill out that running back position. I do find it interesting, though, why he went to Tampa. You look at the Chargers, and not only did they have a better offensive line already, but they just signed Balaga from the Packers to a 5-year deal. So when I saw that deal happen, I was like, oh, Brady's going to the Chargers. And then 2 hours later, he signed with the Bucs. So it was definitely very confusing to me that happened. But at the end of the day, I think this is great for Tampa. I live in Tampa. I'm not a Bucs fan. I'm a Giants fan. I think it's great for this community. This is a passionate football fan base that has not been treated to the playoffs in quite some time. I think they have the roster to do it. But you look at the grander NFC playoff picture here, even with this extra playoff spot, which we'll also talk about here about this new CBA. I still think playoffs is a question mark for this Tampa team, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, you still got to go out and there win games. You got to, you can't just put together a team and not expect to go and win. But look at the NFC South. I mean, it's not going to be as strong as people think this year. I mean, it's going to be, on paper, it's going to be the Bucs and the Saints. But you just never really said the most unpredictable division in I think football. 1 year it's the division one. There's 2 10-win teams. 1 year it's 500. But look at the whole NFC. It's stacked. I mean, the Vikings are there. The Packers, Aaron Rodgers, they're never going to go away. I mean, go down the list, and it's just you got to go out. Seahawks are there too. I mean, it's just I don't know. Nothing's a guarantee, but I think looking at it from Brady's perspective, you go from either the Chargers or the Bucs. In the Chargers side, you're playing Mahomes. You're playing all those teams that you faced in New England, and it's not going to get any easier with age. But even now, the Bucs schedule next year, you have to go play the Chiefs and the Vikings and the Packers, all these teams that we just talked about. So it's going to be a tough task, but I think they can muster together 10 wins. I mean, if they could win 7 with Jameis, who threw 30 interceptions, cut that in half. I think you're going to see some production and win a few more games than last year.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing to me. They were 7-9. This was not a bad team. So I definitely see it from that point. But I mean, even you have Atlanta in the same division that just picked up Todd Gurley and Laquan Treadwell. So now they have 3 receivers. They lost their tight end Hooper and added Hayden Hurst. And now they have Todd Gurley at running back. You even have the Falcons in your own division.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, like when you think the Falcons aren't, going to be there this year, they go out and sign, Todd Gurley. Now you got to worry about that guy in the backfield. But given his injuries, no one knows the severity of how injured he is, what he's going to be like, how explosive he's going to be. But still, it's another guy you have to worry about in the backfield there. And with him and Julio and Matt Ryan didn't have a great year last year. He's looking to bounce back himself. I mean, watch out for them as well. The Panthers are probably going to be the worst in the division this year, in my opinion.
Yep, with their Teddy Bridgewater. What do you think? Bucs playoffs or no, CJ?
I think it's playoffs 100%. But the thing is I'm actually struggling to see. There's something for me. There's something that reeks in New Orleans right now. I don't know what it is over there, but it's 2 straight years that they couldn't get it done in the playoffs. Now, I know the Rams' pass interference a couple of years ago was brutal, to say the least, but is what it is. I mean, the Saints were at home in that game and couldn't couldn't win that game. They were at home against the Vikings and lose. I don't know what it is about New Orleans, but I don't know if it's a hunger issue, a drive. They kill it in the regular season, and then they come in the playoffs and they're choking. So I don't really, I'm not fully sold on New Orleans. Not only do I think Tampa Bay wins, or wins this year and gets in the playoffs, there's going to be a really good chance that they're there for division winners.
Wow.
At the end of the year, I think they're going to be. Them and the Saints are going to have a photo finish there for who's going to win that division. You have to understand what Tom Brady does to an organization. You're getting the best quarterback of all time, maybe not talent-wise, but the winningest quarterback of all time coming into your locker room, to a locker room that desperately needed it. It's unreal. They're going to have hunger, drive. They're going to want to go out there and play for this guy. The stadium's going to be nuts every freaking game. I'm telling you, this Bucs team is going to go 11 wins, 12 wins. It's a now 17-game regular season format. So I see the Saints and the Bucs really being there at the end, but the Bucs are for sure in the playoffs, 100%. And they'll probably have home field for Wild Card Weekend, and then have to go on the road the rest of the way. But this is a really good Buccaneers team in terms of weapons and talent. And Tom Brady, I really can't remember the last time that he was paired up with an offense like this. I mean, he had Gronk and Edelman, but let's be real. I mean, Gronk was Gronk, and Edelman, I guess, was a pretty good player.
He was good because of Brady.
Yeah, I mean, you're giving him Mike Evans, who's arguably one of, if not the best down the field wide receiver to go up and just make a play. Chris Godwin's probably the best up-and-coming wide receiver, maybe Devontae Parker, who knows, whatever. He's got 2 capable tight ends. I mean, they might add a running back in the draft. Who knows? This team is good. Arians is getting a quarterback. He's got to be salivating every night before he goes to bed. I'm telling you right now, this team is 11 or 12 wins and will be there for the division at the end of the year.
Wow. Coming in bold with that Bucs division pick. So speaking about, you mentioned the 17-game NFL season. There's actually one season of 60 games. We'll talk about the CBA now. But they are introducing the third wild card team this year. My opinions on it, I look at it and I say, anytime you add a playoff team, I think it's a good thing. Not just because you're adding a playoff team, because you're adding teams that are going to be one game out of the playoffs. What I mean by that is you have 2 wild card spots. You really only have that 1 or 2 teams right outside those wild card teams, contending for that spot. If you extend another seed, then you have even more teams competing for those wild card positions, meaning less teams trying to sell off at the deadline, more teams to win time. I think creates more parity, and that's a good thing for the NFL. What I am worried about, though, I hope they don't expand again. I'm a big proponent of, I like 50%, preferably under 50% of the league to make the playoffs. I think it needs to be kind of like a badge of honor to make the playoffs. It needs to be an accomplishment. To me, if over half of the league making the playoffs, I don't think it's much of an accomplishment at that point. I mean, it's still very impressive, but it's not as impressive. So I hope the NFL stays, because this would cause you to have 14 out of 32 teams, which is just under half the league. I'm fine with that. I also do like the 17-game NFL season. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, the players are going to play too much. Well, the players agreed to this deal. So at the end of the day, if they don't like 17 games, they signed the CBA, they agreed to it, and they wanted the 17 NFL game season. For me as a fan, I think it's great. I mean, I get an extra week of football per year. The Super Bowl is a week later, meaning less time between the Super Bowl and the draft. I like it. What are your guys' thoughts on the CBA?
I personally think that adding that extra game is huge, just in terms of wild card races. I like it. I like it a lot. I think adding that extra week is huge for football in terms of one extra week of that wild card race. There, like how many times every season do you get down to week 15, week 16, and it's like, oh, this has to happen, and it's crazy. Now add another week of that
Right.
with all those formulas and those patterns of who needs to lose, who needs to win. It's amazing for football, and it's great for fantasy football players. You can extend your regular season now because every game counts. Every game counts. Like week 17, people will set starters now, not week 16. You can go through a full 16 weeks of fantasy football season now because no one's sitting their starters in week 16 because they still need to win out. So I like it. I like it a lot. And, there's some great football teams that go 9-7 or 10-6 and don't even make it in. So I think this is great. Only one team gets a bye now. I think it's really good for football, and I think they did the right thing.
Are you worried though? Are you about getting potentially under 500 teams or 500 teams making the playoffs?
No, I think you're going to see 9-7 teams making the playoffs, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, you think about, like CJ just said, that was going to be my point. It was like you have so many teams going every year, winning 9, 10 games and just missing the playoffs. I think adding this extra spot now, you're going to have teams going as hard as they can, going 100 miles an hour to try and get that last spot and make it into the playoffs. I mean, it's such a brutal sport where, to fall short like that, one game, and to not make it sucks because then you got to restart. There's no consolation prize for just missing the playoffs. So you make it or you don't. So to make it into the dance and to get there and try to, once you're in, you're in. Anything can happen. So I think that's, it's great that they did that. It's great the expansion. You're going to see more teams competing. Like you said, Jacob, no one's going to sell out when they're right there. There's more incentive to keep playing. But I don't think there's an issue with under 500 teams. NFL, you hardly see, a 500 team making it. It happens maybe once every three years, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a rarity, but I don't think we'll see a problem with that. I think it's going to be great for the league. Ratings will go higher than they already are now, and it'll be exciting to see for sure.
Absolutely, guys. So as we're continuing this NFL conversation, we're just going to go into all the moves that have been made so far in free agency. And what I do every offseason, I make a list of each player that moves and just literally just in order of these transactions. And the first one I have here is Calais Campbell to the Ravens. This D-line is this D-line is going to be lethal with Calais Campbell and others. They also added another D-line that I'll try to find it here. But, the Ravens did not have to add to that defense, and they did. CJ.
So hold on. Let me formulate my thoughts here on the Raven. Can you ask the question one more time?
Yeah, I was going to say, so they added Calais Campbell to that D-line, making it nasty. They didn't even need to add to that defense, but they did.
Okay, so the Baltimore Ravens' D-line is already great. I really like Matthew Judon. I don't know if you guys watched enough of him. I totally thought that he was going to hit free agency and get a massive payday from a team like the Miami Dolphins, who definitely would have been in on his services, seeing that they passed out all those contracts, but is what it is. Yeah, I mean, here's what I think. That team, a lot of these guys re-signed, and that is because they're totally locked in on winning with Lamar Jackson. I think Calais Campbell adds that extra bite to that defense, that extra push that they really didn't need, but they're going to get. Where did they go last year? 13-3?
Yeah.
I can't see them going 14-3 on a 17-game season. I think a lot of defenses are going to figure out Lamar Jackson, but I mean, what won those Super Bowls in Baltimore? The defense. I mean, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, you never really heard about their quarterbacks that much. I mean, Joe Flacco had a good run, whatever. But, I mean, that Baltimore Ravens defense is shaping up to be an all-time type of defense. And honestly, I enjoy seeing it as a football fan. I always loved Ray Lewis and Ed Reed flying around, hitting people, Terrell Suggs. I mean, that D-line is unreal, and it's got to rank. If it didn't already, it's got to rank in your top 5, top 7 maybe in the league. I mean, it really could be up there at number 3, number 4. So Calais Campbell, happy for him. Had the pleasure of sitting by him at the NFL award show, seeing him get the Walter Payton Man of the Year was awesome.
That's right.
So he gets to go have a run at a ring, and they're a clear contender for a Super Bowl right now. So I think that gives them a little bit of an edge over the Chiefs if they were to play in the AFC Championship, because I don't really like the Chiefs' defense, and the Dolphins just took Ogba, their D end, who had about 6 sacks in 10 games for them, unfortunately got injured off their D line. So, I mean, the Ravens, they have a complete defense, and people should watch out for the Ravens, not just because Lamar Jackson's going to dust you, but you're not going to really move the ball on the other side.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, talk about your Dolphins too, CJ. I mean, they added a lot. Eric Flowers on the O-line. They got Shaq Lawson from Buffalo, Van Noy from New England, Jordan Howard from Philadelphia, Byron Jones from Dallas. This team is dealing with this cap space.
Yeah, so based on the contracts that have collected, that the Dolphins have collected, and the players that they've added in the free agency period, they've got $234 million in contract value, which is first in the league, $146 million in injury guarantees, first in the league, $123 million in full guarantees, first in the league, and $87 million in payroll this year, first in the league. So this is what they did. I mean, a year ago, around this time, they just were fire sailing everyone. I mean, you saw future keystone players leave the team. It was sad to see Minkah Fitzpatrick gone. I mean, the list goes on. Laramie Tunsil, Kenyon Drake. I mean, Rashad Jones is out the door now. I mean, Cameron Wake left. Ryan Tannehill left. Kenny Stills left. The list goes on and on and on. But guess what? They accumulated a bunch of picks and a lot of cap space, and they spent it wisely. I really like the Byron Jones signing. I don't know if Xavier Howard is going to be here next season. Hopefully he is. If not, doesn't matter. Our secondary is great. I like the Kyle Van Noy signing. I think our linebacking group is good. Then they added Shaq Lawson and Emmanuel Ogba on the D line for DN positions, because they're already very good in the interior with Christian Wilkins and Devon Godchaw at D tackle, which is looking fantastic. The defense is good, and I like the way that they're building the trenches and out. The Eric Flowers pick is a little iffy, but he played well at guard. They're not buying him to play left tackle. They're buying him to play guard as an interior lineman. And then they get Teddy Karras from the Patriots, who is their starting center all last year. Gotta love a Patriots center. Don't care who you are. You gotta love him. He's coached up by Bill Belichick. You're taking that. And then they add Jordan Howard at running back on a really, really, really cheap deal for a guy that can really pop off at any moment. And then they're going to still draft a running back to sit behind him and learn. They're taking shape. They really are. This Dolphins team is not far off, and they're going to do everything in their power to land Tua. So next year at this time, after they've completed the upcoming season, you're going to hear a lot about the Dolphins owning the AFC East for a while. I like that Bills team not fully sold on Josh Allen, and if he has to throw against Xavier Howard and Byron Jones 2 games a year,
yeah, that's a lot
brutal. It's brutal. It's brutal. So I'm really proud of the Miami Dolphins, and don't forget they still have 14 picks coming up in the draft and 10 picks inside the top 100. This roster is built to last, and I'm proud of them, and they did a great job.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think they're a playoff team. I mean, like CJ just said, they just went and not loaded up. They went and made some great moves. I like the Shaq Lawson move. I mean, great guy on the defensive end for Buffalo last year. Coming to Miami now, you made all these moves. You have all these draft picks. If you're a Dolphins fan, you're looking at your drops. You're going, hey, we just made all these great moves to start ourselves right there. Now you have the draft coming up. You could load up there and get tons more talent. I mean, I think they could be a wild card team now with this extra spot added. That's perfect for them. Now you have a spot sitting there. Now you are primed to make a run and try to get in there, sneak in there, maybe win 9 games and you're in. So I think they can definitely make the playoffs. It's not unrealistic with all the moves they made. I think they can do
Yeah,
it.
I mean, you look at the AFC, it's going to be, the AFC North winner. Then I would say the Steelers are probably definitely going to be one wild card team. You look at the AFC East, it'll probably be the AFC East winner, whether that be Buffalo. It could very well be Miami, although I don't think that will happen. You have the AFC South with Indianapolis, Houston, Tennessee. All three of those will be going for a playoff spot. And then the AFC West, you'll have basically all four teams in that division because I think Denver has had a very good offseason as well. You're going to have all four of those teams competing. When you look at the grander scheme of the AFC, the Dolphins could very realistically slip in there at that third wild card spot on year one, or not year one, but basically the year after they said they were going to retool and revamp this roster. Really quick turnaround for these Dolphins. It's very impressive.
So, two things that I wanted to quickly bring up here, and one of them is going to segue into a different topic. But people got to understand, for the AFC East, this is incredible. Tom Brady is out of the division. He's gone. And they're not really adding any crazy, the Patriots have never been an organization where they're like, we're going to go out in free agency and hand out a bunch of contracts. They've always looked at Bill Belichick and said, this is what we're going to give you, coach them up, see what happens. And then you always have Tom Brady there to help you. Guess what? No more Tom Brady. They're going to be third place in the division here this upcoming year. It's going to be probably Buffalo, Miami, New England, New York. And here's why I say New York. The Jets, terrible, horrendous. They didn't do enough in free agency. Sam Darnold, not enough help. I think Robbie Anderson wants out. That's their number one wide receiver. And Adam Gase is absolutely clueless. So the AFC East finally – it's balanced out. And, back in the day when Jim Kelly and Dan Marino were in Buffalo and respectively Miami, it was Miami versus Buffalo every year for a good 15, 17 years. And it would come down to the last couple games of the season. So I'm glad that's back. And then lastly, to segue into a new topic, as a Finns fan, this horrendous DeAndre Hopkins trade to Arizona for freaking David Johnson and I don't even know what other pick. I have no clue what was traded. It helps out the Finns so much because people forget they own the Houston Texans' next year draft pick, and that team isn't looking so hot. So I don't know what are your guys' thoughts on Bill O'Brien absolutely getting screwed over in this trade?
That was a terrible trade. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, okay, there has to be something more to this deal because when it was initially reported, all it said was, DeAndre Hopkins to Arizona. And I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. That's, I wouldn't do that if I were the Texans. But at least let's wait till we see the return here. And I see David Johnson and a few low picks. I mean, you kidding me? I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is arguably the best receiver in the NFL. It's either him or Michael Thomas, in my opinion. And he's traded for a washed-up backup running back and a few low picks. Are you kidding me? I mean, this makes no sense to the Houston Texans. You can make the argument all you want that wide receivers don't directly result to wins. We saw, that comparison made with Odell Beckham when he was traded away from the Giants. All these Giants people were saying, oh, look at the record when he's there and when he's not there. It really doesn't change anything. So wide receivers don't necessarily result in wins. Although with this Texans team, he's more than just a receiver. He is that offense. The offense is really Deshaun and DeAndre. And now that Deshaun Watson has lost his target, his go-to guy, this offense has completely changed. And, that defense suddenly, that isn't as good as it used to be, is not as threatening anymore. That offense is not scary. You have Tennessee and Indianapolis in your own division. Indianapolis isn't going anywhere. I don't particularly like Phillip Rivers, but they still have one of the best total rosters in the NFL, and they have more picks. And then Tennessee went to the AFC Championship game. They bring back Tannehill. They bring back Henry. Now, I know they have a lot of other free agents, but they're not going anywhere. They have a good coach, Mike Vrabel. So I look at this trade from Houston's standpoint. I don't understand it. It didn't turn into another trade to get someone else. I know that this draft is very heavy in wide receiver, so maybe they try and replace Hopkins like that. But I just don't understand it. What is your take?
Well, they don't even have a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just got rid of a game changer. I mean, I watched a good deal of their games last year, and he was their go-to guy, like you said. I mean, it's a guy you looked for. Hey, you need to make a play. I need you right now, and he would pull through for you. And now you just got rid of him. And then you look at that, the trickle down effect. You have Deshaun Watson going into his last year of his rookie contract. He has a club option next year. And if he decides to walk or they go in different directions, he doesn't want to be there, which very well he could. He might be like, you know what, I don't like the deal. And I think if I was him, I wouldn't be happy losing my best receiver for an exchange of and you signed Randall Cobb that same day. Wow, what a trade off! You got Randall Cobb. That's the equivalent. It's the drop off is insane, and you got Will Fuller, who's a injury prone wide receiver as well. And I think you got nothing to work with on that Texans offense now. He's gonna be in trouble. That offensive line is shaky too. I mean, that trade didn't make any sense. There's no direction there. I was really mind boggled when that trade went through. You got nothing. You got David Johnson, who's also been hurt every single year, and you didn't even get draft picks for it. You got a late draft pick for it, but that's doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, that comparison you just brought up with the Randall Cobb thing, it reminds me of the Knicks, when they lost out on KD and Kyrie, and then 20 minutes later they were like, hey, we signed Julius Randle. It's like no one cares. Our star player. So I just don't understand it from Houston's standpoint. But as we're going down this free agency list here, I look at this move here, and I brought up Denver a little bit, a few minutes ago. I think they have a very low-key team. They've got, a pass rush with Chubb and Miller. They just signed a big offensive lineman from Detroit, Graham Glasgow. They signed Melvin Gordon to a 2-year contract, and then they have a 1-2 punch at running back. Their O-line is good now with the addition of Glasgow. I look at that team. I don't see any holes.
Yeah, they sneakily retooled their franchise, and I think that this is exactly what the Broncos wanted, which was John Elway and the Broncos are going to fly under the radar a little bit here in free agency over the last few years, draft picks. And I'll tell you right now, they are really high on Drew Lock, who actually throws a good football and who they drafted in the second round. I think that Drew Lock has the tools to become a pretty above average quarterback. And that's really what you need to win. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why they went out and got Melvin Gordon. You're taking so much pressure off Drew Lock over the next year or two by handing the rock to Melvin Gordon while letting Drew Lock grow into a franchise quarterback. And I like the Broncos. I really do. I mean, they're a little thin at wide receiver, but
that's one weakness.
Cortland Sutton is good, but they're going to need to add someone, and I can see them doing that this year. I mean, it's loaded wide receiver draft. I like what the Broncos are doing, and that defense is unbelievable.
That, right, Font?
What was that?
They have that tight end, right, from Iowa, Font?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's good too, but they do need more receivers.
Yeah, they need another wide receiver, another X factor for Drew Lock to throw to, which I'm sure that they'll do. John Elway's a pretty aggressive GM, and he's very aware of, as a quarterback, what you need to win. So that's good there for Drew Lock. He's got a great mentor in John Elway. I like what's going on there. And that defense, no one can ever sleep on that defense. Von Miller, Chubb, I mean, gosh, the list goes on. That defense is great. And I've actually had the pleasure of going to Mile High for a game.
Wow.
I went in my junior year of high school, I saw the Finns go to Denver, which we collapsed in that game in the last minute or two to Peyton Manning and the Broncos. But I'll tell you right now, there might not be a better home field advantage outside of the Broncos and the Chiefs. I don't know where I'd rank the two, but the Broncos, man, I'm telling you right now, that place gets loud. It is loud. It is hard to breathe there. If the Broncos get good again and they're playing playoff games in that home stadium, watch out.
Yeah, I mean, I love everything you're saying about them, but I mean, we'll shift this off to you too, Stephen. We'll talk about the whole division here. The Chargers also added. I mean, and by the way, Denver also added Jarrell Casey, which I forgot to bring up, a huge defensive player from Tennessee. But the Chargers added Linval Joseph, Chris Harris from Denver, a big corner. That defense is legit with Derwin James coming back. They're not going anywhere. And then the Las Vegas Raiders, they have a pretty good offense. They've made a few free agent moves. This division might be one of the most competitive in football.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to touch on the Broncos, who had their schedule pulled up, their largest loss last year was by 20 points. They have 7 games they lost by one
Yeah.
possession. I mean, so you look at a team that's right on the cusp. I mean, a few of those games go the other way. I mean, their record wasn't very indicative of how they played last year. They played tough, close games, and that defense is legit. I mean, they got Melvin Gordon. They add a few more pieces here. I mean, you're talking about a team that can compete with the Chiefs. I mean, they lost to the Chiefs twice last year by 20 points. I mean, it's kind of a drop off, but those are their biggest losses. But I mean, looking at division, I think Kansas City will end up taking it again this year just because they're so high powered. But Denver and Los Angeles could be neck and neck with that second spot, looking to compete for a wild card, berth there. But Denver's a team that's not far off. I think like CJ said, they bought into Drew Lock, a guy who is confident back there and could definitely throw a good deep ball. I mean, he's legit.
Yeah, I would agree. And another move that really puzzled me this offseason, Nick Foles to the Bears. Are they just not trying a quarterback guy? I mean, like, they had the chance to go get Cam, and I get it. Cam's shoulder, no one knows what's happening with that. But they would rather take on the terrible contract of Nick Foles than go out and get Cam Newton?
Yeah, I don't quite get that move. I don't know what the direction of that organization is right now. You got Trubinsky, who, did a tremendous drop off there last year. Very disappointing season. Not much going there. And you have Cam sitting in free agency or looking to get traded. The Panthers have openly said, hey, we're looking to deal him. You can look for trades. A guy who really is out to prove himself and has taken a year to rehab himself. A guy who I think is really hungry to get back on the field, and you have him sitting there and you go and get, that guy. I mean, really, come on. Like, if you want to win football games, Foles is not your guy. But, we'll see what happens with that. But I think Cam Newton is definitely the best for quarterback out there to go get. But if you want to football games, that's not the way to go.
I don't really understand what's going on here with Cam Newton. I don't think that this is much of a why would the Bears get Nick Foles. It's more of a wait. What's wrong with Cam Newton? Why is he not the face of a franchise right now? Why is he not on a roster and listed as the number 1 quarterback in the depth chart? We're talking about Cam Newton here, an NFL MVP, national championship game winner, Super Bowl contender. I mean, what? Why is Cam Newton not on a roster? And I really believe that behind the scenes, these NFL GMs know way more than we do, of course, as to what is really going on with his injury. It could be way worse than we're being told. I don't know. But for the fact that Cam Newton is not on a roster already and why these teams are signing Nick Foles and Tyrod Taylor and whatever else is going on here, it makes no sense to me at all. And that just kind of tells me maybe there's way more to Cam Newton right now with his body and whatever else is going on. So who knows? But I personally thought Cam Newton in that Bears organization with that unreal defense would have been immediate Super Bowl contender just because of that defense. I mean, holy cow. I don't mind the Nick Foles signing because he makes easy throws. Trubisky struggles to make the easy throws, and they just need a guy that's going to go in and, as the Bears quarterback with that defense, you can throw for 200 yards a game and a touchdown or two, and you're going to win. So,
yeah, I guess, but I mean,
look
at Minnesota, Green Bay, is that enough? And even Detroit.
I mean, I'm not really that high on Green Bay. They need to add to that defense. They need X factors on the defense. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has to be in that GM's ear saying, like, that defense needs to stay on the field or get off the field. They stay on the field for too long. I mean, every single time Aaron Rodgers pulls something out of his back pocket, the defense is letting up an easy touchdown. But regardless, I'm confused on the Cam Newton thing, and Also, I thought Jameis Winston would have been a better fit in Chicago. He's got a massive arm. I mean, it's a windy
Yeah.
city there. You got to sling the football. So I'm confused. I'm really interested to see where Jameis Winston and Cam Newton fall.
Well, I think the confusing part is you look at around the league, who actually needs a quarterback? Not many. I mean, really, it's Jacksonville and and New England. I mean, other than that, no one else needs a starting quarterback. Considering that Cincinnati, the Chargers are going to fix their needs long term. Miami obviously is going to fix that need. That might be the problem here for Cam. It's where can I even go?
I think Pittsburgh, excuse me, but I think Pittsburgh, they could look for a quarterback too, though, a good backup.
True. Yeah, that's very. I mean, how long can Big Ben last?
Yeah.
So this has been great NFL conversation, guys. But we also have the NHL playoff race to talk about that's been paused. If you look at the standings right now in the East, you have Washington, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, top three in the Metro. That's basically been the same for a few months. In the Atlantic, you have Boston, Tampa Bay, Toronto. Toronto at 81 points, and then Florida at 78, right outside. And then in the Metro, the Carolina Hurricanes have 81 points, Pittsburgh 86. So basically the Metro, 3 teams are locked up. The Atlantic 3 seed is basically between Toronto and Florida. And then the wild card race has Carolina, Columbus as the top 2, with the Islanders right outside, a point behind, and then the Rangers at 79 points. So they are 2 points out. We talked about it earlier. What are they going to do with this playoff format? They're just going to say, hey, top 6 teams, you're in. Will they do a little tourney here where they do, the 9, 10, 11, 12 seeds face off in one-game eliminations to determine who's the 8 for the playoffs? These are all interesting questions, but as we look around the league, if we had to pick just, a few teams that you would say can just get right back on the train here and start winning games again, who is your guys' favorite to keep going here in the Stanley Cup playoffs? Specifically the East so far.
Oh, it's just so hard to say. I mean, just off of the Toronto Maple Leafs Florida Panthers debate, I mean, both teams will get hot, and then they're like, oh, wait, you want the playoff spot? You can have it. Do you want it? Okay. So, I don't know. I'm really confused as to where this is going to go, just in terms of, playoff expansion. There's just no way that they're going to do the normal 8-team format. So I guess your question is who's going to keep playing?
Yeah, I mean, if we're really going to, because at the very least, we know that these division winners are going to be in.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be the 2 to 4 teams closest to a spot outside of the 8. So 12 from each conference, but those 4 teams that are on the bubble are going to have to do a play-in game, and then those teams that did the play-in game are basically going to be pitted against the 1 seeds, and I don't know. But I think they're going to find a way to do this fairly. I really do. I actually have full faith in the league.
Yeah, the NHL usually knows what they're doing. I mean, if I had to pick, a team out of this wild card bunch to come out, I'd say Carolina. I've said it all year. Their record is really not, even though they have 81 points, and they're in a wild card spot, their record's actually really good. They're 38, 25, and 5. That's a key number that I look at here. OT losses. When you only have 5 OT losses, that means you're playing in regulation a lot. And when you get the majority of your wins in regulation, I respect that. Whereas you look at the Islanders, they're 35, 23, and 10. That you could say they're basically 35 and 25. 35 and 33. But if I had to pick one team out of this wild card bunch to keep going, I'd say Carolina. Only 5 OT losses. They have a plus 29 goal differential. That's really good. It's actually better than Pittsburgh's and Washington's. So that's why I say they're better than people think. Steven, who are you looking at here in the East?
To make it in, like I said, Carolina's a good pick. I mean, they have games in hand on everyone. You're looking at it here. They have 68 games played. Columbus has 70. That's why I think Columbus would be the odd man out here because they've played so many games. I don't know how long you keep mustering that, that mojo going, keep winning close games. There are too many injuries there. But in the East, I mean, it's just tough. I mean, there was just so many meaningful games left in the season for it to just come to a halt. You had 12 games left. It was going to be a sprint to the finish. You had teams like Toronto, who was getting really hot. The Panthers are sitting at 78 points, right on the cusp of a playoff spot, playing meaningful games, starting to find their groove again. It's just now that it's come to a grinding halt. I don't know who would be the favorite. I mean, you can obviously look at the top three in each side. Boston's been on a tear all year. Philadelphia to me has caught my eye because they've played great hockey in the last 20 games.
Yeah,
But looking
they've
at
played
it,
some unreal hockey.
it's just tough now that you hit this layoff, and if you were to go back and play games again, it's anyone's game. If you go and make a playoff format, I don't know. I couldn't tell you who would come out and be the favorite. I mean, the Lightning were playing good hockey too, and they found their stride middle of the year, and now going back in the layoff, it's almost starting the season over again. It's picking it up from game one. Let's figure it out as we go. So it'll be interesting. I think the NHL will do the right thing and get as many people into the playoff format as you can. Like CJ said, the 4 or 5 teams sitting on the outside looking in. I think to play a 1-game playoff, figure it out that way, and then go from there and maybe play a 5-game series in the first series and then go until you get to the conference final, then play 7 games sets. But it just depends on how long we go here in this break. But I just want some meaningful hockey again.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And then you look at the West, you've got, the Central Division top 3 teams, St. Louis at 94, the defending champs. Then Colorado at the 2nd seed, they're at 92 points. Then Dallas at 82. And then in the Pacific, you have Vegas at 1 with 86 points. Then Edmonton with 83, Calgary with 79. The top 2 wild cards, Winnipeg and Nashville. Winnipeg with 80, Nashville with 78. And then Vancouver is tied with Nashville, but they're currently sitting at the 3 seed. They've both played 69 games, both with 78 points, but I'm sure that there's a tiebreaker there somewhere. And then Minnesota also. Surprisingly, Minnesota, actually, they're a point out of the playoff spot with 77 points. So when I look at the West, I think it's a lot more clear-cut. First of all, St. Louis would most likely have Tarasenko back. I think that's a big deal. Basically, I'm looking at it and I'm saying St. Louis and Colorado is my West final. The Pacific Division is weak. I don't like the Vegas Golden Knights. I think they're overrated. Edmonton, they don't really have much offensive talent outside of McDavid and Draisaitl. I mean, that's a great problem to have, when those are 2 of the top players in the league. But other than them, they don't have a lot of producers. Calgary, 3rd team in the division, they're a -5 in plus-minus differential. They're really, they're another team that I think they're just a product of the West. In the East, they wouldn't even be a playoff team right now. So, and even Edmonton, I mean, you look 83 points for Edmonton, they would just be 2 points ahead of Carolina. So the West is definitely weaker than the East. I'm looking at St. Louis, Colorado for sure to come out and be in that West finals. But what are your guys' views on the West?
I agree with what you're saying. It's a little bit more clear cut, and I agreed with all that. When you look at the West, I mean, it's the playoff race down to the wire was not going to be as exciting. But a few teams that I would definitely want to see in and get a shot. Got to be obviously the Winnipeg Jets are going to make it, and the Canucks. The Canucks are going to make it in just because they're clear cut wild card teams at the moment. But I really wanted to see the Coyotes get a shot at making a run at a position. They started to play decent hockey down the stretch, and then the Predators I would like to see get a shot at making it in. But the Wild are at 77 points with 2 games in hand on the Jets. And so are the Predators. 2 games in hand on the Jets. I mean, you have to give it to the Predators and Wild there to get in. because they're like literally 2 and 3 points out respectively with two games in hand on the Jets on a wild card spot, and then the Wild are 1 point out of a spot behind the Canucks. So, that's just a headache. I mean, yeah, I guess you would have to go Predators Wild to make it in, and that would really be it. I mean, I can't imagine anything else. So,
Yeah, because
everybody else is so far off.
Yeah.
Yeah, the West is just a jumbled mess right now. The East is pretty you can see who's in the picture. The West, I mean, you look at the divisions, like Dallas is the third spot and they're 82 points. Calgary's 79 at the third spot. And so you got all these teams in the mix. You can go all the way down to the Chicago Blackhawks who are at 72 points. Yeah, it's a stretch. They have 70 games played, but that's only in the scope of the 12-game set the rest of the way. You're 3 games out, and you have a game in hand on Winnipeg, and you play them 2 more times. So you look at it, there's so many teams that could be like what ifs, but I think the 2 dogs in the West would be St. Louis and Colorado, the 2 most consistent teams that have really lost a couple games and they go on a tear again. They haven't really showed signs of inconsistency. Other than that, it's just been up and down roller coaster for Vegas, Edmonton. Just haven't found their game all year, and with this season coming to a stop, I don't know how you're going to dish out the wild card with it being so close. That'd be the one side where you could be like truly where you can do a 1-game playoff for each of these 5 or 6 teams that are on the cusp. But it's just a bad predicament in that the league's in with such a competitive league itself, and for it to be this close and have no idea what you can do. It just sucks.
I agree with you there. And now we're going to very quickly shift to the NBA. And this is a different situation for me. I think basketball is a sport, especially because there's not going to be any movement with the rosters. They can just kind of pick up and keep going. And I think it might be more of a positive thing that this break happened for the NBA. You give LeBron James a few extra weeks of rest. He might be rejuvenated for this playoff race. And when you look at the standings right now in the NBA, I think they could, unlike the NHL where it's so close, you look at these standings, you could just end it at these 8 because
3 games out.
Portland is
that's the closest contender for a playoff
3
spot
games
in the
out.
Entire league is a team that's 3 games out. That's the closest contender for a playoff spot in the entire NBA. They're 3 games out.
Well, that's in the West. Actually, in the East, Washington's
no,
the
that's
first
what I'm
team
saying.
out.
That's what I'm saying.
They're
like
28
the Portland Trailblazers are the closest to getting in a playoff spot, and they're still 3 games back. So I agree. I think that if I was the NBA, if I was the NBA, I would literally just say, "Hey, we're going to finish up a 10-game regular season here to get everybody back in the playoff groove, and then we're starting the playoffs." That's what I would do. Way easier.
A lot easier for them. And, when you look at the playoffs in there, OKC is actually the 5 team right now. I was kind of looking forward to seeing, a Houston and Utah series because I've been saying, Utah would win against Houston. But now it would be Houston against Denver. And I don't know who would win that one. I would probably have to say Houston, sadly. But what is your guys' opinion on the Rockets? I don't see this working. I think Harden has turned into more of an ego, take the ball by myself type of guy than even Russ has. Like even Russ has conformed to the system and a new style of play.
I think they're a second-round playoff exit team. Nothing more, nothing less. They've got probably the most prolific scorers in basketball on their team, which is amazing, but they don't have enough defense. I don't like their coach. I don't like the way that their team plays basketball, so they are a second-round exit.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, it's just year in and year out, they can't seem to figure it out. I mean, you got Russell Westbrook. I mean, Harden. I mean, we talked about this. I talked about this with Sawyer. It's like, they were in a series with the Warriors a few years ago. I mean, they had the door shut on them, and somehow just can't find a way to close games out, find a way to win. I mean, the culture there. I mean, they have great players, but I think the attitude and you have too many guys that want to do it themselves and try to do it themselves instead of just buying in as a team and going, hey, this is how we're going to do it. I don't know. It just seems like the wheels fall off, towards the end every year and just can't seem to, find a way to win the meaningful games in the
Yeah,
playoffs.
and now that I'm, there's kind of been time since basketball's been played, and I'm looking at these standings, and I'm just like, I don't know if you guys are thinking the same thing, but I'm like, it's going to be Milwaukee versus one of the LA teams, and that's it. Like, I don't see anything else really happening at this point
Yep, I agree.
in the finals. I'm saying, yeah. So
Yeah, I mean the only other team outside of that would be, I mean, the Heat are playing really good basketball, but I mean I don't know, just you just don't I don't know who can match up with Milwaukee and take them down, to be honest. I mean, you can look at Toronto, but it's just they're just such a juggernaut up there at the one spot. They haven't shown any signs of weakness all year. I don't see who can, pull off a 7-game series and upset them.
yeah, and
So
this has been a great episode, guys. I mean, we've covered all the bases. We talked about coronavirus and the effects it's had on sports. Talked a little bit about the NFL, all that free agency, Tom Brady stuff, and talked a little bit about the NHL and NBA as well. And we're gonna have a lot more content here for you guys during this hiatus of sports. We have a lot of plans soon. We don't know when we're gonna start this, but we're gonna start doing. We're gonna try and do daily videos for season previews for each Major League Baseball team. That'll be mostly me and Steven. And then, of course, CJ can join whenever he wants as well. We're going to have those baseball videos. And then we're planning on also possibly doing some daily NBA, NHL playoff videos. So basically what we would do is 2 videos a day. So it would be baseball and a hockey preview, baseball and an NBA preview, never 3 videos in one day. That would be too much. But we're, while there's this hiatus of sports, I know a lot of people want to listen to sports stuff, and me, CJ, and Steven will be here for you guys. And we want to thank you guys for keep listening. Obviously, we won't be on FAU Owl Radio for the rest of the school year. We'll be back on FAU Owl Radio next semester in the fall, so around August. So for now, just follow us on Twitter at Strict Sports FAU. Look us up on YouTube, Strictly Sports. It'll be the second result there. You'll see it. Strictly Sports Jake Brown. It'll be right there. You guys can subscribe for tons of content coming your way. And we're also going to find a way to get this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify soon through this Anchor app. We've got to figure that out. So thank you, CJ. Thank you, Steven. Stay safe out there, guys. And thanks for listening to this episode of Strictly Sports. And we'll see you next time.